This 2024, billions participated and will participate in elections, shaping the future despite challenges to democratic norms. Now, the spotlight turns to the Philippines for the pivotal 2025 elections, marking a crucial step in the nation's democratic journey, including the landmark Barm parliamentary elections, empowering self-governance and redressing historical grievances. The International IDEA's annual Global State of Democracy report in 2023 shows that in every region of the world, democracy has continued to contract, with declines in at least one indicator of democratic performance in half of the countries covered, pointing to external pressures such as poverty, illness, and management of debt in geopolitical areas. As the world navigates challenges to democratic principles, the upcoming Regional Forum on May 13 to 14, in partnership with the Commission on Elections, Bangsamoro Information Office through the Halalang Bangsamoro, Asia Network for Free Elections, National Democratic Institute, and the Asia Foundation is a timely undertaking, gathering insights and experiences from Asia's recent and upcoming elections. The forum aims to spotlight challenges, showcase best practices, and foster dialogue among key stakeholders. Join us as we strengthen democracy's foundation, ensuring safe, accountable, transparent, and inclusive elections. This 2024, billions participated and will participate in elections, shaping the future despite challenges to democratic norms. Now, the spotlight turns to the Philippines for the pivotal 2025 elections, marking a crucial step in the nation's democratic journey, including the landmark Barm parliamentary elections, empowering self-governance and redressing historical grievances. The International IDEA's annual Global State of Democracy report in 2023 shows that in every region of the world, democracy has continued to contract, with declines in at least one indicator of democratic performance in half of the countries covered, pointing to external pressures such as poverty, illness, and management of debt in geopolitical areas. As the world navigates challenges to democratic principles, The upcoming Regional Forum on May 13 to 14, in partnership with the Commission on Elections, Bangsamoro Information Office through the Halalang Bangsamoro, Asia Network for Free Elections, National Democratic Institute, and the Asia Foundation is a timely undertaking, gathering insights and experiences from Asia's recent and upcoming elections. The forum aims to spotlight challenges, showcase best practices, and foster dialogue among key stakeholders. Join us as we strengthen democracy's foundation, ensuring safe, accountable, transparent, and inclusive elections.
Good evening or good day to everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ang Show na Walang Title. And we are currently live on the Facebook pages of Lente, Tayo Na Collaboratory for Young Leaders of Democracy, and Caritas Philippines. We are also live on Lente's X and YouTube channel. I am Jules Giang, your host for this episode. We also have Joy Villarreal as our Filipino Sign Language interpreter. Like the 2024 global super elections, the Philippines is expecting its own super election year in 2025. With the simultaneous national and local elections, the first BARM parliamentary elections, and the barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections. Recently, Lente held a regional forum entitled 1 Year Before the 2025 Philippine Elections, What Can We Learn from the 2024 Super Election Year? The forum provided insights and strategies that can be crucial for the successful execution of the upcoming elections in the Philippines. For our 58th episode of Ang Show na Walang Title tonight, we will have a light yet insightful post-forum discussion, focusing on assessment of the recent forum, exploring electoral issues, particularly election disinformation and abuse of state resources and strategies presented that stakeholders in the Philippines can adopt moving forward. Joining us for tonight's episode are ANFREL's Senior Program Officer for Outreach and Communication. We have Mr. John Rayner Antiquera. Good evening.
Good
Hello.
evening. Hello.
Hello. Hi, and we also have Lente's Senior Program Director, Attorney Ryan J. Rose. Attorney Ryan, good evening.
Magandang gabi. Good evening.
Good
Sa,
evening.
sa inyo at sa lahat ng nakikinig.
Thank you so much. And we also have the Asia Foundation Philippines Senior Program Officer. We have Miss Stephanie Tan Labog.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi everyone, good evening. Clear naman.
Okay. Good evening. So, Ate Steph. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Hi, Jules. Yeah. Sabi ko sa'yo
Hello.
kanina, wag na please.
So we were together in Diliman before. Anyway, so for this episode, we have audiences also outside from the Philippines. So we'll try our best to really
Hmm.
speak straight English for all our audiences tonight. Okay, so
Ah,
but
okay.
before
All right.
we yes, before we head on straight to the discussion, just a few reminders for our viewers. We invite our audience to join the discussion by sending messages to our hotline flashed on the screen right now. You can check on the crawler. And you can also engage with us by typing in your questions in the comment section of our live stream. Of course, don't forget to like and share our episode tonight and use the hashtag Satin ang eleksyon. So that's the hashtag that you can use on all social media platforms. So let's begin the discussion. Good evening again, once again, to all our speakers. To give a bit of context or refresher to our viewers, last week, that's May 13th to 14th, the Legal Network for Truthful Elections, or Lente, in partnership with the Commission on Elections, Bangsamoro Information Office, through the Halalang Bangsamoro, the Asian Network for Free Elections, National Democratic Institute, and the Asia Foundation organized once again the What Can We Learn from the 2024 Super Election Year, a regional forum on the 2025 PH elections. And the purpose of the said forum is to provide insights about the challenges and best practices that the Philippines can apply in the upcoming 2025 national and local elections and BARM parliamentary elections. So many things will happen in 2025 for the Philippines. So for everyone, before we deep dive into the significant electoral issues, can you share with us your insights on the previous forum? What were your main takeaways from the regional forum event? Let's begin with Mr. John Antiquera.
Hello, good evening again to our viewers. No, I thought this would be an opportunity for me to speak in Tagalog since I'm not based in the Philippines. And then I was told that this will be in English. So I would be switching codes if the audience would allow it. I'm sorry, but namimiss po natin mag-Tagalog, especially when you work.
Monday to
But I will
Friday is
try
in
my
English. I understand.
Yes, I will try my best though. But first of all, I would like to congratulate Lente, of course, for a very successful event last May 13 and 14. The discussions were very interesting, and for me, it gives hope for I see hope in this community that we continue to work and strive for free, fair, and democratic elections. No, I see that there's room for improvement as well and openness to cooperate and collaborate among different stakeholders. My key takeaways, I guess, is one, I appreciate the candor and the willingness of the Commission on Election to share their plans, to answer questions, and listen to suggestions. No, it was quite refreshing for me because there is a genuine sense of readiness to engage, and that's always a good thing. Whether or not that expression, no, would work with to work with various stakeholders translates into the actual work of the body is another thing, but to see that there is a avenue for engagement for civil society organizations, a good start. I know there would be, from the brief, no, there would be particular questions on our reflections on the regional forum as well. But I wanted to take this opportunity to give a more general perspective. It's a bit cheesy, but what struck me the most during the forum was what Attorney Christian Monsod said during his keynote speech about sacrifice being the currency of love. I don't know about the yes, I don't know about the other speakers, but I've been in the media and civil society work for quite some time now, and I can say that both are thankless jobs in a sense that you give so much of yourself and get very little reward, even recognition, no, for the work, and yet you're not really there for the awards or accolades. I think like most people who stay in this line of work, we see problems and have told ourselves that we can't sit idly and do nothing. So we work and contribute to change things, to empower other people, to take charge and never allow themselves to be taken advantage of and fight for their rights. Essentially, you make sacrifices because that's how you express your love. No, in connection to that, I remember the reflection of Omar of We Watch from Thailand. about people making people understand the value of observing and monitoring elections. Which brings
Mhm.
me to my last point for this question. I think the greatest challenge for us, especially those working in elections, is to foster a kind of engagement and participation among the general public where they fully understand the value of their vote, why it matters to democracy that there is a meaningful participation, and how to sustain that participation beyond the electoral exercise.
Thank you, John. I agree that was also a very striking soundbite from that forum. No, sacrifice being the currency of love. Thank you for reiterating that quote for tonight. How about for you, Attorney Ryan?
Well, I don't have a similar quote like that, no. Unfortunately, nonetheless, no, I think the key takeaways from the forum with regard to ASR, well, first is that ASR is actually beyond elections. I think
Mm.
that's really very apparent, no? Because when you're talking about elections, we tend I think Filipinos tend to think that you're talking about democracy, it's just elections, but it's not. Democracy is just is beyond elections. Elections is actually the very formal. I think the simplest form of making, the simplest process of making someone politically accountable. But it's not the sole venue or process by which you can actually participate in governance, electing your leaders, and making people accountable. Uh, but so that's number one. No, ASR definitely is. Uh, Beyond election. Secondly, is that the importance of involving the people in in addressing ASR. No? I think that was emphasized with the sharing of the Mexico experience, wherein there was really the management board in Mexico really formalized the participation of the public on how to detect ASR. No? And thirdly, ASR also has this component of culture, no? And I think I invite our listeners to reflect, no, on what we think are things that things that we thought are that's how things have been done, and therefore it's all right. So I remember one participant, actually because in one of the suggestions. So if you display your face or name in uh, in the facilities of, for example, the government, and you're an incumbent and you wish to run again, technically you are taking advantage of your position to campaign. But one participant actually said or raised the point that isn't this a normal practice? So what is the implication of that question? The implication is that have you accepted that as a normal practice, or should we demand a higher standard of ethics insofar as our leaders are concerned, that they should not be doing that? So definitely there's a policy aspect in order to address ASR, but there's also we need to address ASR from the bottom up as well. In the sense that the public should be able to understand and to really reflect on how things should be done. You know, there.
Mhm. Okay.
Ang
Thank you so
lalim
much,
na.
Attorney Rose. How about
I'm
for
sorry.
Ate Steph? Miss Steph
Joke.
Labog.
Talk about love.
Gusto ko yung currency of love. Hindi, joke.
Yes.
Gosh, okay, I'll share. Ako hanggang ngayon, LSS pa rin. Ay, sorry. Until now, I'm still LSS pa rin
This
ako
is the
dun
Ice
sa,
Ice Baby.
alright, stop, collaborate, and listen. Diba? Ganda ng entrance na yun. Um, and then, what are the other things that yeah, seeing attorney Christian Mansod, I mean, constitutional forefather, right? And then he was giving such an impassioned speech, and it was like, wow, just so much insights. And then he was flipping through his pages only to say that he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, did he say he was 87 or 88? And of
Mm.
course, everyone like kind of laughed, but it also made me realize he's been fighting for so long. I mean, it's and this is what it is. Like, we also heard insights from people whose lives are at stake to just keep democracy alive in their country. Um, so although sabi nga ni Attorney Rosé, no, na elections is not the only thing that there is in democracy, but I think it is a very important part of it. And like
Mhm.
John said, I did appreciate the the honest and the candid replies of Comelec. But it also made me realize that hey, they still have a long way to go, and
Mm.
kudos to them, no, for of course
Yeah.
trying. But yung parang I mean, parang excited ako na medyo kinakabahan ako para sa kanila. I'm sorry, I'm like a bit nervous for them. There's just still so much more to go. And, we have less, we celebrated during that actual forum 1 year before, right? The elections. And so there's both the national, the
Mhm.
midterm, and the first ever BARM elections. Granted that the code was passed, you've got the IRR that was passed, but then I also realized during the forum that the Bangsamoro people have to fill out two ballots. And it was just like a realization for me na that means they have to understand two separate and very different forms of government, right? You've got the presidential and all of that, and then the parliamentary. So, um, while it is going to be monumental and historical, it doesn't. It's it's a start, and we
Yeah.
shouldn't, of course, just pin all our hopes on this. So yeah, so it was great, and I think we had to even move venues, like move hotels, just to accommodate the number of people that were interested. So that was very encouraging. The importance of civil society in this kind of exercise. It was highlighted as well. So it's nice to see, people, of course, that I know and new friends. Overall, very positive event, I think, for me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Steph. Now let's dive deeper with the discussion. This one is for Steph and for John. So, what are the key points basically discussed in the election disinformation session that you'd like to share with the audience right now? So, basically, how does election disinformation affect the integrity of elections? And if you could also share, are there strategies that we should consider in combating election disinfo in relation to the plans of COMELEC in creating this task force kontra bawal? Steph or John?
Hmm. Um, Sige, John. What I guess two things that I wanted to highlight. With the whole misinformation discussion that we had. Um, with For me, the most important is that the information disorder aims to discourage people to participate in the whole aspect of things, right? Which leads to, um, and it's not just about the candidates themselves, but it really leads to decreasing people's confidence in the system. I have tended to look at how these affects like the people, the political party, pero yun nga, it's shaking the entire democratic system.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, maybe I'll stop there, John.
No, for me, I was kind of expecting
Okay.
that they
Thank you.
would.
John,
Hello, hello.
Yeah, I can
go
hear
ahead.
you,
Yes.
John.
Yeah.
No, I was kind of expecting that Comelec would present a more like more details about
Detail.
the yeah. It's just that it was more of a general presentation. So I think they mentioned that they are conducting consultations still with various stakeholders, and of course that's a good thing. No, during that session they were willing to answer questions. They took notes of concerns and suggestions. No, and I would commend them for that. But I think one key takeaway for me is that when they presented the voluntary election integrity guidelines for technology companies, while it's voluntary, the mere fact that they presented it means that they are willing to subscribe to it. It's a voluntary thing, no? But if you read the guidelines itself, it says that the intent is to provide a shared set of expectations for companies and election authorities as they each work to advance election integrity and provide high quality information to voters. And if you look at the commitments under that guideline, you can see, for example, commitment number 3, establish and disseminate clear policies and processes regarding election related contents. Commitment number 7 is to establish a strategy to take action on misinformation and disinformation. And you also have commitment number 9 to publicly provide information on paid political and or paid election content. No, so them presenting that to the public, to people, no, means that well, these are the things that we would aspire to subscribe to, and for us civil society organizations, these are the things that you've committed to, and we will hold you accountable for it, right? But I would also like to emphasize, because during that session I asked about their guidelines, if they have any, about the use of AI during elections. No, um, and they said that they will be working on it. And I remember, I think it was Sir Louis, who said that, well, it might take time. A year before the election might not be enough because it's quite a technical thing to do, which is, I agree with him. It is a technical thing. But then if you look at elections this year, because that's the theme of the forum, looking at elections in 2024, if you look at elections this year, you see the utilization of AI, for good or the bad, Um, but then you look at EMBs and they're not necessarily prepared. They don't necessarily have guidelines as to how AI should be utilized. No, I don't also want to sound too alarmist. AI technology, generative AI technology, is quite useful in a sense. But then, if you don't put guard rails, there could be potential for misuse and abuse of the technology. And I think we need to be able to have that discussion right now. And if we're talking about technicalities, not having the knowledge to assess or to come up with policies related to it, I think it's also an opportunity to engage with other stakeholders who are more knowledgeable about AI. Because we see it now, and if we're not prepared for it, then it's just a misstep for us. And I think there has to be an emphasis that, well, it's happening now. We should pay attention to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to
Thank you so much,
echo.
John. Yeah, go ahead, Steph.
Sorry. No, I also wanted to add that, John, remember they were also talking. Comelec also said that they've recalibrated the branding of
Mhm.
yung contra fake news into bawal, and
Mhm.
then they shared, right, like what the BAWAL stands for, um, and it was specifically on things that were actually not about information, disinformation, and AI. So while I laud Comelec for trying to make things more accessible, right, to the masses, but I think it would be good to refocus the intent of what they're supposed to do, which is to address misinformation, disinformation, AI. These are things that that really have to be addressed, and not kind of shift the focus to other things, which are also important. But I think they're kind of losing the targets on that.
Right. I think it's also a reminder to all our viewers who are voters eventually, no, next year, to be more discerning on the content that they consume online, especially now. More and more candidates, soon to be candidates, are releasing content right now. So we need to be more discerning on how we consume these content. So thank you so much, John and Steph, for those inputs. Now for Attorney Ryan, let's talk about the points mentioned about the abuse of state resources that are important for our audience to know. So basically, the main question here is, how big of an electoral challenge is abuse of state resource?
Well, I think it's really I mean, I think it's a big problem. Largely because for the longest time, it has been happening and yet we are really unaware of of its existence. In fact, it has been going on for I think decades, and for for the most part of Philippine history. So, and I say this largely because when you examine the laws of the Philippines itself, uh, and the way people actually gain access to resources, uh, it is a big part of it is really through doleouts, no? Through doleouts, and how centralized the power is of how centralized uh, administration is in the local government unit with respect to the chief executive. And that actually puts the local chief executive in a position of being able to really abuse his position for to skew electoral competitiveness. And it's not only with respect to local governments, the local government units. Apparently, well, even the electoral code, no, the omnibus elections code actually contains, no, I would say, um, policies that promote abuse of state resources. Why do you say this? No? So during one of the sessions, one of the participants actually said, we could actually prevent this if the incumbents or the candidates do not know where their votes are coming from. So apparently in Myanmar or no, I think it was in Cambodia, they actually mix ballots. So you don't
Mhm.
know, you're not sure, or you don't know if you were in this barangay or in this barangay. So that was a really good suggestion. But apparently in our omnibus election code, you are required. No? It's actually under the law that uh, that the way counting is actually done. You know the source of where you won based on the electoral returns, and uh, the reason another reason behind that, and this was also behind that policy, is that uh, it allows the candidates to actually focus on particular barangays if they wish to campaign. So for example, if I lost in this barangay, ooh, then the next elections, or even if I win, then I should focus on this barangay, or maybe I should not focus in this my programs
Mhm.
on this barangay and focus instead on other barangays wherein I won. So, uh, but the thing is, there is bias in the way the law is actually articulated, because it allows the leader, the incumbent, to determine where can I focus the resources of the state for purposes of winning the elections. So I
Mhm.
would say it's a big problem. There are things that are really apparent that it's state
Yeah.
abuse of state resources, but there are also biases in the law itself that let
Mhm.
the people in power abuse their positions for purposes of skewing electoral competitiveness. And on the part
Right.
of the public, as I mentioned a while ago as well, uh, in a sense, we are used to that kind of, you know, how things are run. So,
Mhm.
and that creates another layer of a problem. Yeah.
Yes. So, Attorney Ryan, from the end of civil society, how do we stay vigilant and proactive to address these ASR? And have we heard any plans from COMELEC with regard to the various proposals of CSOs, including Lente?
Oh, yes, definitely. In fact, just recently, Commissioner Maceda uh, mentioned, no, during, I think, the one of the congressional hearings, that there was really an initiative to address ASR, which is really, I would say, uh, which would uh, and which would build on the current initiative to the current Contra Bigay initiative, which is really an initiative against vote buying. So using that
Mhm.
same mechanism, ASR will be incorporated in that uh, COMELEC initiative of Contrabigay, which is really good. I would I consider really good because you are building on existing mechanisms. So which
Mhm.
based on our assessment of the Contrabigay was really effective.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Ryan. For the next set of questions, we'll talk about how do we feel about the ongoing efforts of the Philippines election management bodies in preparation for this upcoming election. So first off, first question is for you again, Attorney Ryan, on the EMB's commitment to mitigating election disinformation and abuse of state resources. How are the efforts so far?
Oh well, it, well, on the part of Lente, we actually appreciate the engagement, no? The engagement with of the election management body with CSOs,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a big step in itself. To be open to suggestions and really not only open but adopting the suggestions. In fact, during one of the during the forum, no, and during our session, uh, the Comelec, the Comelec mentioned ASR, no? And conducted a presentation on ASR. So and mentioned that we wish to address this evil. So yeah, personally and institutionally in the part of Lente, we really appreciate that, and we actually look forward to working with Comelec to address this evil. But of course, that comes with other challenges. But we welcome
Mm-hmm.
those challenges.
Thank you. For Steph, on the EMB's collaboration with stakeholders, have you seen any efforts, and how are the how's the progress so far on these efforts?
Um, yeah, they shared with us the different the different efforts. Although this one was specifically on misinformation and disinformation, but I think the first day we did talk about what Comelec has already been doing. Um, yeah, it's like I mean, we can laud them for the effort that they've already been putting in, and I'm sure it's a really difficult job that they have to do. But I just feel that they weren't able to really give us in full detail. And to give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe the details weren't shared because of security purposes. But there's also the other side that maybe some of the details were missing because they haven't really come out with a comprehensive plan just yet. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that also because details are important to be. It's important for the public to know what the details are, right? It gives us confidence in the system, so that when elections happen and then the results come out, we're quite confident that this is going to happen. I also felt like there was a lack of information on how to, example, ensure that elections are going to be inclusive, right, for all the different sectors. I don't think there was any mention of that. Um, uh, and so people, I mean, the EMBs are definitely preparing already for next year. I had a feeling that they're starting to prepare. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just good, but it's like 1 year to go. So,
Less than.
for me, it's like, right, less than, right? So it's like, guys, all hands on deck. Get, the elections experts and get right ideas from other countries already. There is some sort of collaboration, but I feel like maybe there's like, I wanted to push more urgency. That's just kind of how
Right.
I felt. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Steph. For John, especially coming from your field, no, your perspective, what best practices do you think election management bodies or EMB should adopt or improve? Are there best practices from other countries that we can probably implement here in the Philippines?
Mhm. No, actually wanted to speak about something else, but I think this is the
Go
third time
ahead.
that I'm saying that. It is quite commendable that they are quite open. That they it's a civil society organization forum, but it's a
Mhm.
multi-stakeholder forum as well. But they presented themselves, they went there, they talked to people, and they took note of what people were saying, which
Mhm.
is their job. I understand, but I think coming from our experience in the Philippines, we know that not all government agencies are quite collaborative in nature. So
Mhm.
I think it's only fair for us to be saying that, to be noting, of course, that they are quite open. At least they're engaging with people in terms of how they want to go about the policies that they want to implement. But I also wanted to ride on what Steph said about the confidence in the system, and that this is me speaking on a different hat as an OFW, because there was a migrant group in the forum, and they were talking about internet voting, because I think during the forum, Comelec was quite determined to implement internet voting for overseas absentee voters. No, and yet I think during that time as well, there were news that Comelec hasn't really selected a service provider for the internet uh, voting. So we don't know. I mean, it was a year before election. We don't know any particular. And absentee voting happens a few, advance of the election day itself. So we're just a few months before that election, and yet we don't know how this system would work. And I think as an OFW, if you're going to implement a new voting system and we're not necessarily aware of how it goes, although there has been a mention that they would use blockchain technology for it. I'm not quite confident about it because we don't know details yet, and you build confidence in a procedure, in a system, if you communicate those things well, and yet we don't know at this point. I understand, of course, the intent, because they were saying that the voter turnout for overseas voters are quite low, because of course the realities of people abroad, they live far away from embassies, and they would have to
Mhm.
travel just to vote, and it would be quite a convenient way to be able to do internet voting, and yet we don't know much about it now. So in
Mhm.
terms of preparation for that particular aspect of the election, I'm not quite sure about it. I'm hoping that things would be there would be more details about it, and that they try to build confidence in that new system that they would be introducing, because the intent is really to allow people to exercise their right to vote, and I want my vote to be counted, and I want that system to ensure that my vote is counted. No, so just speaking from an OFW perspective, yeah.
Yeah. Steph? Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. That's right. That was one of the biggest shocks when I heard that they're really adamant at pushing for the internet voting. Parang wow. I don't even. I mean, are there a lot of countries that have already done that? Yeah, I tried to Google. Parang hindi pa masyado. I mean, there's not a lot. Um, and then Jules, you were asking like what were some of the examples I think of others. Um,
Mhm.
that maybe we can learn from. And what I noted was most of these were really from civil society, just highlighting the importance. I mean, I really appreciated, of course, yung, from Taiwan, Double Think Lab, the work that they're doing, right? And then there were discussions on like community moderation systems, maybe even using Reddit. Sorry, this is to address yung misinformation, disinformation stuff, right? But most of them were really like voluntary and platform based. So it just reminded me again that um, perhaps really, because also it's democratic, for governments to really, for EMBs to really be able to, um, do elections or like the rollout of elections properly, they really have to pull in the various CSOs that have an expertise in these things. I mean, if they really wanted to be as open and as accountable, like what John was saying, then this is the time for them to really be like, okay, then let's work together, and you guys keep us accountable. That would be right, like the maybe the pinnacle of transparency, if they themselves would be open to that kind of scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying that, if because they tama naman. I mean, John was saying that they really wanted to work together. Then that's maybe we can really push that envelope, to go that far.
Okay, thank you. Now, moving forward, this one is for all. What should be the direction or approach of various stakeholders, such as the government, media, of course, and civil society organizations in this upcoming 2025 NLE and BARM parliamentary elections when it comes to promoting the integrity of the elections? As we mentioned, it's less than a year before this super elections in the Philippines. So, what should be the approach starting at this moment? Let's start with you, Attorney Ryan.
Ah, okay. Well, I guess when you say promoting the integrity of the elections, when you say elections, I really I cannot divorce it from the right to suffrage. So because the elections is the process, and the right you exercise during elections is the right to suffrage. So now, when you wish to promote the integrity of the elections, uh, you must as well promote the integrity of the right to exercise it. And that includes what? You address disinformation, you address all mechanisms that, undermine the exercise of this right. Not necessarily the process itself, but the way people actually choose. So anything that undermines or uh, uh, unduly influences that exercise of the right affects the integrity of the elections. So having said that, no, I think when we are all stakeholders in the elections, the public, the CSOs, media, and civil society. So and apart from the government itself and the government institutions, so the approach really is collective. The approach is collaborative. Uh, while the government may enact policies to ensure that we address the conduct that affects the right to suffrage, and you address conduct that amounts to what violations of law. uh, on the part of the public, they must, the public should also as well participate, and really help, participate in making people accountable, for undermining the electoral process. And of course that uh, the public, that also as well includes the media and civil society organizations. So I think it's through this collective engagement that we can really address
Mhm.
and ensure the integrity of the elections in the bar, and also the national and local elections.
Mhm. Thank you. How about for you, John?
No, I think that was a mic drop moment already. No, that was a very insightful answer to promote the integrity of the exercise of the right to vote. Um, for me,
Okay. Thank you.
because we
Yeah.
also, yes, no, we observed the elections in 2022, and one of the 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 main problem that we were able to identify was the rampant vote buying in the Philippines. I think for us Filipinos, yeah, just to be frank about it, we all know a story of someone who was offered, or maybe we ourselves have been offered to, you know, meron naman siya. It's something, and I would also echo what has been said earlier about normalized behaviors. Yung mga ganitong bagay kasi parang siyang normal na sa atin, which should not be, but they are, you know. I think the solution has to be more holistic in a sense that um, cultural kasi siya rin. Hindi lang siya policy related. It has become part of our political and electoral culture, vote buying. No? So the solution has to involve not just policies in itself, but in terms of policies, the policies should be more deterrent so that we hold accountable those who are buying votes and that they would not do it again. I think we have not been able to hold people accountable that much because it has been accepted as a normal practice, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Um, of course, disinformation is still a problem, but picking up from the discussion, I think this is a bit more forward looking. Picking up from the discussion during the forum, one area where civil society organizations in the Philippines could work on is a parliamentary watch. We've heard from the example of Taiwan, no? And I asked Attorney Ona during that during that session that the Philippines doesn't necessarily have a parliamentary watch, and yet we vote these people through our elections, but we don't necessarily monitor how they perform. And I think there has to be a more comprehensive way of holding them accountable, looking at their performance, because at the end of the day, we voted for you. We are your borrowing from a former president's line that we are the bosses here and you are accountable to us, right? And I think there has to be more efforts to hold them to account, to look at how they perform, how they manage finances, especially taxpayers' money.
Mhm. Thanks, John. How about you, Steph?
Mm, yeah, to echo also the need to protect the integrity of the electoral process. Um, it seems like the highlight has always been on the candidates. It's like we're just watching a game or some sort of competition. So maybe flipping that spotlight to the people. So perhaps what can still be done by the various stakeholders is really to put the spotlight on making people realize that we actually, the voters, the electorate, we're the ones who are the most important. We we are electing the people that we feel should be our leaders, and then they eventually get accountable. What are the different and that's why elections should be important to the different sectors, because whatever issues that they're pushing for, um, they should try to lobby or advocate for those to the candidates, and ensure that the candidates will be the ones to bring changes to those specific sectors. So it would be really great to encourage different stakeholders to um, I guess assert, because asserting is also talking about culture. It's not really us being assertive is not in our culture. So it would be great if people would help each other realize that elections is about us. This is what we want. This is what we should push for, and ultimately we elect the people kind of that we deserve. Not sorry, we elect the people that we that we lead, that will lead, and then I, I just feel I just feel that we always talk about EMBs and the COMELEC and all these candidates, but it should really be on the flip side, and the people should be the ones that have to be like highlighted now.
Yeah.
So yun.
So, Steph and everyone, speaking about the people, before we officially wrap up this conversation, is there anything you would like to remind our audience, our voters, tonight, in order to ensure that next year's elections would be safe, accountable, transparent, and inclusive? And I'd like to add, to make this last question probably more fun, is there any excerpt or a song that's in your mind right now that can encapsulate your hope for the upcoming 2025 elections? I'll give you 15 seconds to think about this before you answer. And to our audience who are watching right now, you can still shoot some questions if we still have time, but 15 seconds is now is now moving. Who'd like to answer first? It could be OPM, it could be an international song. I think
I
John is
can go
ready.
first. No, no,
Okay, John, go
because
ahead.
questions were given ahead, no, and I was thinking, ano nga bang kanta? And I only thought of one song, one line in particular. If you remember, when we first did transition to um, automated elections, GMA had this song, this song promoting how you vote. It says, my bilog, hugisin from
Yes.
sex bomb dancers, no?
Sex bomb, yes.
Gusto ko lang siyang banggitin, not necessarily about lessons, but that's, alam niyo yung common saying when we talk about sex bomb dancers, that hindi tayo pinalaki ng sex bomb dancers para bumawi. Dapat laban lang ng laban. So, for me, I think that the message here is that people have to assert themselves, as Steph has said, no. But I would go back to what I said earlier during the first question, no. I think the challenge for us election workers to help elevate the electoral and political engagement and participation of the general public is to really help them fully understand the value of their vote. You know,
Yeah.
I think we really have to be more um, uh, give them more a spotlight and the value of the vote and their right to vote. You know, and why it matters for democracy that there is a meaningful participation, as I've said earlier, and kailangan may sustained participation. That election in itself is not the end all be all. It's a beginning, and that you continuously have to engage in processes in your government, that you hold them accountable, that after elections it's not that you just let them be. No, you have to be part of that process, and I think there has to be more avenues and venues for them to be able to engage, and I think that's where we civil society organizations come in, because um, we bridge that gap between the government and ordinary people, because we ourselves are ordinary people as well at the end of the day, no. But yeah, meaningful participation in the elections, and that elections is not the end all and be all of it. So laban.
Thanks, John. Would like to go next? Attorney Ryan or Steph?
Ginanong kita eh. Ikaw muna.
Okay, okay.
Attorney Ryan.
Yeah, I share John's message. Really to let people, I mean, that's really the way, boils down to, the value of the vote. If there is dignity in the vote, then you choose
Mm.
correct. Thing is, so far as, Filipinos are concerned, and sadly, uh, we really, Filipinos really can connect the vote with governance.
Mm.
So, and governance with, socio-economic implications. So there's really a disconnect, and that's the challenge, on the part of uh, civil society, really, to be able to, let people realize that, it's not it's not very it's not just, one vote, and then it doesn't matter, because a vote is a very powerful tool. Any person, any Filipino, is only entitled to one vote, regardless of your position in life. So, in a sense, it's an equalizer, supposedly. Now, with respect to the song, uh, I would say, habang may tatsulok, sila nasa tuktok. And I say that,
Oh,
That's
in,
Sulok.
in, uh, from the perspective that we all, I mean, Filipinos have this deference for their leaders. And I think, I mean, respect is fine. But when we leave governance, and we to all our leaders, and we treat them as kings, and we are even afraid to hold them politically accountable, no? then it becomes harmful for democracy itself. So, dapat tanggalin natin yung tatlo. Dapat yung voter yung nasa ibabaw actually.
Mhm. Thank you, Attorney Ryan. Finally, Steph.
Hindi ko matanggal. For some reason, I keep like it's like in my head. I don't even know if I heard this. It's like yung hold on, just keep on holding. Parang alam mo yun, it's like that hope. Just hold on, guys. It's okay. Just But my husband, who's an artist, will kill me. So naisip ko, may mga political songs din naman siya. So kukunin ko yung I'm gonna get one line from one of his songs. Sisikat ng muli ang ating araw. So still very hopeful. That's from Dicta License. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's all we could do, right? Is just be hopeful. That's really what the democratic process is about. That no matter how bad it is, and oh, sorry, and I say this because after the 2022 elections, there were a lot of people who said that what, this is just darkly comical, and a lot of fellow activists, just said, what, we're tired. And that's exactly how sometimes we all feel, right? Like, talaga. And I'm sure, especially for you guys who are at the forefront of elections, it can get so tiring, and it can be both for, government officers in the bureaucracy, or for us civil society workers and media, especially media, members of media here in the Philippines. Jules, I'm sure you know about this as well. It can just be so painful and tiring. Pero yun, sisikat muli ang ating araw. Hold on, guys. It really is that. We just have to keep holding on to positive, without being, um, uh, it's not empty words. I mean, really working together and being positive. I think I'm very excited for the Bangsamoro to finally, cast their votes. It's a very exciting time. Also very exciting for our country. So, we should be very proud.
Okay. So thank you so much for this very insightful discussion to Steph Tan Labog. We also have Mr. John Rayner Antiquera and Attorney Ryan J. Rosé for, again, this very meaningful discussion about the reflections on the recently held regional forum, and for sharing your strategies that stakeholders in the Philippines may adopt as we approach the 2025 national and local elections and BARM parliamentary elections. Thank you so much. Happy Friday to the three of you. Thank
Happy
you.
weekend. Thank you.
Happy
Happy
weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. So I'd also like to thank our viewers tonight. We hope you learned a lot from this episode. Watch out for more Ang Show na Walang Title episodes on Lente's social media pages. You can also listen to this episode as well as past episodes of Ang Show na Walang Title on our Spotify channel. For timely news about election and social issues, check out Oras na Pilipinas, Dapat Pwede, every first and last Friday of the month from 8 to 8:30 a.m. PST. Watch or listen on 702 DZAS FEBC Radio TV and on terrestrial radio through 702 DZAS AM. For information about the BARM parliamentary elections and Bangsamoro Electoral Code, watch the Halalang Bangsamoro, ang Boto ng Bangsamoro podcast series. For the upcoming episode next Friday, May 31st, we will delve into the key provisions in the Bangsamoro Electoral Code, looking at how these are operationalized in the implementing rules and regulations, other COMELEC resolutions, and other issuances of relevant ministries and offices in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. The Luzon leg of Lente's Move Advocacy Program ended last March. The Move Advocacy Program consists of Lente's visit to COMELEC offices, law schools, and various organizations to share the Lente's program for next year's elections. Lente's ongoing visit to law schools, COMELEC regional and provincial offices, civil society organizations, and social action centers in the Visayas and Mindanao will continue on June until July as part of the preparation for the 2025 national and local elections and BARM parliamentary elections. And finally, the Legal Network for Truthful Elections is grateful and honored to reflect on the success of the recent regional forum on the 2025 Philippine elections held last May 13th to 14th, 2024 at the Shangri-La, the Fort Manila. We extend our heartfelt appreciation to all our esteemed guests and participants who attended both in person and via Zoom. Your contributions made this forum a resounding success. Please follow our social media pages and stay tuned for more updates. Once again, stay updated and don't forget to like our Facebook page. That's Lente Philippines. On X, Instagram, and TikTok accounts, that's at lente_ph. And visit our website, lente.org.ph. Once again, I'm Jules Giang. See you in our next episode. Happy weekend, everyone.